but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters. It is Tuesday night. It's always eagerly anticipated, I know, by everybody out there, and it is myself joined by Liam Kennedy from the Shields Gazette. Good evening, Liam.
Evening. I'm just delighted, Steve. I'm absolutely delighted to be here on a day where you've managed to, me and you together, we've conjured some news to talk about on a Tuesday night.
I know. It's like we're sitting cooking up each week, isn't it? Dear me, how you couldn't have predicted this, could you? I mean, in fact, you couldn't have predicted the last 7 days. We often, the way we advertise the show is the lads look back at the last 7 days at Newcastle United, but it's the lads look back at the last 7 days at Newcastle United and the Premier League, because this is just monumental, isn't it? This is like something which we could never have anticipated, especially after, an attempt to do something similar only, a matter of months ago was completely shelved because, in Gary Neville's words, they bottled it. But, this is just something completely mind-blowing, and something, of course, that we predicted, Steve Hasty and Neil Mitchell predicted on many occasions, and Amanda Staveley also commented on, with regards to the takeover. And I'll just read something out, because a lot of people are saying, I'm looking forward to hearing what you and Liam have got to say. But what I actually said today, I just put a little thread together before we came on the show. And I think it's quite simple. The proposed Super League is no surprise to supporters of my generation. Time and time again, decisions have been made at the top table of English football without any consideration for fans. This is a step too far by the so-called Big Six, who've spent the last 12 months objecting to the proposed Saudi-led takeover of my club, Newcastle United. Now we know why. The clubs that have signed up to this proposed Super League should be punished by their respective leagues and have sanctions placed on them to serve as a warning to others who feel they can treat the beautiful game with such disregard. That's how I feel, folks. And I'm sure that, a lot of you out there watching this show feel exactly the same. Liam, what was your thoughts when that news broke during the matches on Super Sunday?
My feeling on Sunday, I looked at it with a degree of skepticism initially. I would be honest about that. Thought, is this the power play we've all been waiting for? Because you quite rightly mentioned there, Steve, that anybody who's a regular watcher of these shows, particularly you guys, the Three Amigos on a Friday night, will know this kind of thing was ready to blow at some point. A lot of people were predicting it a little bit later. Some thought it would have already come by now. But it was no surprise to anybody that there was this power play. But I think, I'll be honest, the thing that changed my mind was the Monday afternoon when it suddenly became a 23-year deal, etc. The finance was all in place. Lots of that changed my mind slightly. I thought, actually, this feels like a little bit more than a power play. This feels like a genuine attempt at a breakaway. Look, I'm quite interested to hear what everybody else out there thinks of it. Everything that's been said, you'll know my feelings on it. I'm absolutely disgusted. It taps into the idea of how powerless you feel as a football fan. Now, I don't believe football fans are necessarily always powerless, but I think that was one emotion that really came to me on Monday in particular. Was just, you know what? If these lot want this to happen, it'll happen. They'll do it in some way, shape, or form, and they'll spoil the game for everybody. I was really heartened here today to be in on a meeting with obviously a lot of you were in the meeting as well, Steve, with the supporters groups, etc. And listen,
Labour called a meeting, didn't they, with Keir Starmer? Yeah,
Keir Starmer. It was really good to be in on that meeting and hear what Keir had to say about it. The leader of the opposition. A real legal mind talking about legal issues was the really interesting thing that I took from it, was him saying there was absolutely no legal impediment to the government stepping in, putting legislation in place to prevent this happening for the good of everybody else, the good of communities and the good of the English game. And I was really heartened to hear that. And I've also been heartened to see the stance that the likes of, yes, they've not been saints, Boris Johnson, Oliver Dowden, etc. They've all taken a really strong stance on this, that they see this as totally wrong for the country, wrong for its people, communities, and football in general in this country. I don't know what the answers are. I've seen a lot of people on my timeline coming at me when I put a story about the Premier League response today, and a lot of people saying, what the hell was that? You know what I mean? What a load of rubbish that was. Look, let's be brutally honest. The Premier League were never, ever going to come out and say, right, them 6, if you don't conform, you're booted. It was never, ever going to be that. It was always going to be a bit more olive branch than rod. It was always going to be a little bit more, look, we're not happy with this. We've all said we're not happy with it. But you've got to remember the financial implications. There is a lot to unpick and untie with any of this to progress. And there's a lot of clubs who rely financially on the big 6. That's not something a lot of people want to hear. But unfortunately, it's a situation that we find ourselves in. I would love nothing more than English football to take a real stance and say, you've brought this game into disrepute. You deserve punished for it. I would love that. That's what I want to see personally. But I can also understand the reasons as to why the Premier League clubs and the Premier League, the FA, etc., have taken the stance collectively to say, okay, look, there's time. You can come back on board here. You've made a mistake. I quite like the UEFA stuff as well. Seferin, when he was talking today, basically saying, look, basically, you're a bunch of mugs. You've made big mistakes here. Now come back on board. You've got till Friday. And I think that's kind of the approach, the way it's got to be for a little while, that they've got to offer that olive branch and see if they will come back on board. There's been a lot of talk today, Man City, Chelsea, whatever. Is it mischief making, as someone would suggest, or is it genuine? I mean, we've talked to people, and you hear that Manchester City, of all of the clubs, were the one who weren't really sure about being on board. Right up until quite late on in the day, we know the driver of this, particularly from the English side. There's been talk of Florentino Perez with his rainbows and unicorns speech last night when he was talking on some obscure channel in Spain or whatever he did, where he starts saying, oh no, the pandemic, it's caused so many problems for her. But you've just spent 500 million doing the Bernabeu up. And you've also just, last summer, you bought Luka Jovic and Eden Hazard at 29 years old for 100 odd million from Chelsea. Oh, poverty. Honestly, I wish I had half the money they've got. So you kind of plead poverty, and he gave all this ridiculous speech. But the main drivers in this country, as we know, and you mentioned it before, we'll go back to last summer and we'll go through interviews that Amanda Staveley gave. Not long after everything, the pull-out happened. It felt like it had fallen apart. And she pointed at 2 clubs. She pointed at Liverpool and she pointed at Tottenham Hotspur. Add another one in that, Manchester United. They are the real problem clubs. We've got the American owners on one side. You know, we know it. It's all been said. I don't need to come on here and talk to you guys about the franchise models, all that kind of thing. You've heard it all before. It's been wall-to-wall coverage for the last 2.5 days. We know that's it. Tottenham are opportunists, and we know they're opportunists. Levy is just lumbered that football club with this huge debt with the stadium, best stadium going. They need to be on board. They have to be on board with something like this, or Tottenham could be screwed totally. They're absolute opportunists. And we know from anybody who's done business dealings, you hear bits and bobs, that Daniel Levy and the Tottenham lot are the worst people in the world to do any kind of business with. So it doesn't surprise me that they are one of the biggest troublemakers in English football. And they were one of the ones who really, really opposed the Newcastle United takeover by PIF. And why was that? Because their seat at the table, and Arsenal, they weren't, but Arsenal and Tottenham in particular, that seat at the table in England's top table is probably the weakest, easily the weakest. And they were worried that, say, for example, last summer, the Saudis swept in, and even with a sort of small amount of investment, for example, let's just say it was West Ham level of investment, taking themselves up to a Champions League spot, had the financial firepower and might and plans and infrastructure, ideas down the line to build this football club. Tottenham then start looking over their shoulder and thinking, right, well, this thing we've been planning for years, are we really at this table? And I'm sure conversations would have went on. Look, it's a different conversation if things go down that line, but that's probably the reason why Tottenham opposed us so much. And of course, we had that fantastic story that I did with Keith last year, Keith from NCSL, where he revealed some of the information. We got some of the information from other sources, etc., about the Tottenham Hotspur thing. Tottenham Hotspur and PIF. Everybody brushes over that. Tottenham Hotspur approached the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia to buy them out for billions. And they wouldn't do it. They didn't think it was value for money. And you can see why, because Tottenham's a club lumbered with debt up to its eyeballs. And obviously the problems that go with that now, it would have been a disaster of an investment when you think about it. So yeah, I want to hear what other people have got to say. I want to know what other people think. I want to kind of canvass tonight and get as many people as possible. Come in the comments, come in the chat, and let me know. Give us your thoughts, your analysis, and say what you really think. Obviously, the questions will come in. I'll answer anything I can, but I'm really intrigued this is an opportunity for me in particular, in person, to almost chat to people and get that feedback and see what people on the ground are actually thinking of this.
Yeah, I mean, probably your best bet is to just check the YouTube as it's moving, because it's quite quick tonight. Lots of people have got opinions. I've got to be honest. You know, that Keir Starmer thing today. Obviously, we had a representative on from the northeast. Greg was on from NUFC. Was given an opportunity to speak briefly, like a few other people from other trusts. I think somebody was on from Arsenal, Tottenham, Huddersfield. Was the other one that was the northern representative. I was a little bit let down in the sense that Greg chose that to sell the pledge idea. We've spoken about the pledge, of course, on here. We've given it a lot of coverage. We've all got opinions on it. We've supported it, and we've done a Q&A with the trust on here as well. I didn't think that was the right time to start talking about something that's essentially raised 60 grand in its first 7 to 10 days. It might be a bit more now, but I just felt that wasn't the right time, Liam. You know, it was about the bigger issue. It was about the Premier League, and I understand the context that he put it in, but this is why the trust, I'm afraid, come under criticism for essentially trying to recruit and try to push their ideas when they use a platform like that to maybe publicise something they're doing. I'm sure you heard exactly the same as I did, but that's the way I took it. Yep, Liam, I think you've gone there.
I heard it, and I thought it was a really good opportunity for the trust to potentially talk about. I'm going to delay again. Oh no. So I think it was a really good opportunity for the trust to push the idea that the takeover Newcastle United had really sort of gone through the mill, the reasons, the problems, and almost like an I told you so as well, to sort of say, like, at the end of the day, I'll come off and come back on again.
All right, you're going to come off and come back. Sorry, folks, this is what happened last week. His internet's terrible wherever he is situated. So what I'll do is I'll use this opportunity to promote the sponsors, of course, who we have on board with us at NUFC Matters, who sponsor all the shows. So as always, it's a big shout out to Spider VPN, who sponsored us for the last 3 months for your internet security. Wonder if they could help Liam out with his internet down in his neck of the woods. It would be good, I think. Also, a big shout out to Arcot Interiors. You can find them at arcotinteriors.com, 0191 265 8663 for all your interiors in your kitchen, and inquiries at arcot.org.uk. Big shout out to them. They've come on board this month. And also qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Newcastle, and also to Jab Signature, who produce all of our flyers and poster material. They provide some cracking tracksuits and footwear for boxers and people in the fight game. Just Google Jab Signature and you will find them. They've got a new range coming out very soon. And if you're a first-time visitor to the channel, if you just click on the Newcastle Legends badge down in the bottom right-hand corner, you can click subscribe. 39,000 people have already done that in the last 12 months. So please do that and join the channel. You can set a reminder for your favourite shows and you'll be notified to when Liam's show is on, and hit the thumb up. It's very important for us, and that just likes the video for us. And if you click share, that shares it to your social media, whether that be Twitter, Facebook, etc., etc. Join the chat as well. hit the comments button, and you can make a comment. Plenty of great people in there. We have a lot of regulars in who like to talk Newcastle United. And don't forget as well, we also have the T-shirts up for grabs. That is on my Twitter account at Steve Wraith. I think the bid is £25. All proceeds are going to the food bank. So please, if you've got any money in your bank and you want to help the food bank out, bid for that T-shirt. I'm going to close that one off tonight. The current bid is with Pete, and it is at £25. As I say, all proceeds are going to food bank. Tomorrow night, just as a little reminder that we are on all week again this week, we will have the retro show, and that will be with a full squad. Neil Mitchell, George Mitchell, Steve Hasty, and Stu Penman and Steve Wilkinson are here with me tomorrow night at 6 o'clock to discuss games between Newcastle United and Derby County. All your usual favourites on there as well, when we have celebrity fans and players that played for both teams, and then the lads try to put a 1 to 11 together of players who played for both teams. Thursday night, of course, sees myself joined by Supermac and Gibbo as we look ahead to the game against Liverpool at the weekend. And I'm pleased to say that Liam is back with us, and hopefully his internet is a little bit better now, Liam.
Oh, it's a nightmare at the minute. Do you remember that time, Steve, where you had the dip in and out for a few weeks?
Yep.
I'm in one of those.
I still get it, but it's okay at the minute, mate. So yeah, we're just talking about the trusts, the trusts comments today, mate.
So yeah, I'll be honest, I do concur with that, Steve. I did. I thought it was a missed opportunity personally. They could have talked about the issues that Newcastle United have had in this sort of last year. They could have mentioned the takeover problems that Newcastle United have had. I just personally think it was a missed opportunity.
I did send a question in, which had, which again, they compiled all the questions. They didn't want to embarrass Keir Starmer. I'm sure he had enough embarrassment getting chucked out of a pub yesterday. But obviously it was, I asked about, pretty much what I tweeted as well, that this has been something we've had to deal with, the corruption of the top six influence on the Premier League stopping our takeover. It's as clear as day. That is what's been going on. And with them cooking a little plan up like this in the background, it's no wonder they didn't want the Saudis sitting around the table spoiling things, So, look, let's try and get through a few questions. We've only got till 7 o'clock as usual. So, essentially, just about a lot of the questions, from people is, do you think this is going to be beneficial for the takeover, Liam, in your mind? What's your opinion? Because Richard Masters has got a hell of a lot to deal with now, and the last thing he wants is, going to court with Newcastle United. Do you think this might sway in our favour? A lot of people are asking.
Look, I've spoken to certain people who do believe that is the case. I can only speak from my personal opinion, and my personal opinion on the whole thing is that no good can come of what is happening at the moment. I don't believe any good can come for English football, but even rolling that back to Newcastle United and the takeover, I don't believe anything good can come of that either. I think should anything like this go ahead, it massively devalues the football club because it massively devalues the Premier League, makes it a less saleable asset. There'll be much less of an appetite for money men such as the Saudis, etc., to buy a football club like Newcastle United because the competition won't be the same. The prestige of the competition won't be the same. So for me, I don't believe anything really good can come of this. Yes, there is some train of thought that think is this the last? Is this a headache that Richard Masters doesn't need? I will roll people back 12 months and think back to the same conversations we were having during the first lockdown and the return of football. Is the Newcastle takeover another headache that Richard Masters doesn't need? He did, and the clubs were fine with it, and they kept going on with it. Will he feel betrayed? Will he feel betrayed having walked hand in hand with these clubs and done a lot to placate them, etc.? Having, as we know, been vetted before he was put into the job by at least one of those who rejected, pushed for a rejection of the deal. Yes, it may well be that they feel that way, that they've been too far for them and they won't bend any further. But that's basically sort of really honing in the idea that these clubs lobbied massively, and that was the main reason as to why the Premier League took the decision. I think the Premier League's decision is a bit more multifaceted than that.
Yeah, I would agree. Douglas Hunter has just bid £30 for the T-shirt. He's trying to help us out, actually, because I put the T-shirt up when you were off, and I just realised that it's the Steve Wraith is God T-shirt, which is a one-off. I'm sure people don't want to get assaulted in the street wearing that. I think that's probably why it's been... That so far is the lowest bid for T-shirt on the channel. I'm begging the people watching, it's for the food bank. Please don't allow this to go as the cheapest ever T-shirt for the food bank. So get on me Twitter, at Wraith. It's pinned at the top. Bid for the T-shirt. It's for the food bank, for God's sake. I'll never live it down amongst the team. Question for Liam, Jonathan Ward. Do you think PIF will be put off buying Newcastle if the Super League eventually happens? As I would find it hard to believe they wouldn't want to be one of the elite clubs. That's a flip, like a reverse of of what we've just been talking about, really, isn't it? But do you think they'd be put off?
Yeah, I think there is potential for that. Yeah, like I said, I think it massively, if it were to go through the Super League, it massively devalues the product of the Premier League, and it doesn't make it the prestigious competition around the world that it once was. I think the loss of those 6 clubs makes Newcastle United a less palatable football club to buy to other clubs. Of course, you could flip it on its head and say, would they still want to buy it anyway? Could it be a reduced price, etc.? I don't know. They're all hypotheticals, and at this moment, that's what we're living in. We're living in a world of hypotheticals. We don't know if this deal will ever go, if this proposal will ever come to fruition. We don't know if it'll be shot down by government. We don't know if it'll be shot down by some of the clubs themselves bailing out. We don't know if it'll pass through in a year or it might take 5 years. We don't actually know when, or it's all hypotheticals. So I think at the moment, I've said a lot on the takeover over the last 12 months or so, but my thing that I'm constantly going back to now when people ask us questions is, for me, there's only one thing that matters at the moment, and that's the arbitration, because that is the next step. The rest of it is just noise. It's all hypotheticals. Until we've got a decision on arbitration and we know which way it might go, then I think talking about whether PIF will push through with the deal is again impossible to know.
Yeah, it is. Let's briefly, because I can imagine we're going to get sucked back into this, celebrate the fact that Newcastle beat West Ham at the weekend. Yeah. Not only beat, I mean, they were comfortable at one point, 2-0 up, but West Ham, who were chasing the Champions League position, it has to be said, pulled it back, even with 10 men. But Newcastle still had the balls of steel and the character to get that win. And Steve Bruce, again, I've given him credit, second weekend or third weekend in a row, made the right substitution. And 83 seconds later, that man again, Willock, steamed in like a steam train and put the header past the West Ham keeper, and Newcastle got the points. Got to be happy. And watching Fulham, concede a last gasp equaliser against Arsenal, just rounded the weekend off. Especially with Sunderland getting beat as well. So eight points clear, game in hand. Got to play them. We've got to be safe now, Liam.
There was also that sort of drama at the end of the Burnley game as well, at Old Trafford as well, that just kept them down there. That they would have just reopened that gap. So at the moment, look, 3 or 4 weeks ago, would we have thought that Burnley and Brighton, especially after Brighton had just beaten them, would we think they would be more worried than us now in a relegation battle? We would never have imagined that. So it's hard not to be happy with the result. Yes, of course, there were negatives of the performance. I think Newcastle United, if they'd gone for the jugular at the back end of that first half, start of the second half, if they'd really gone for the jugular, I think that result could have been a 4 or 5-0. Quite easily. I think Newcastle United really, but I actually did. Bruce talked at the end and he talked about players being sucked into a mindset that hang on to what we've got, we'll win this game. I actually agree with that. I think that can happen. People sort of questioned him for it, but it can. And obviously he's had those conversations at halftime saying don't get sucked into that kind of game, and they allowed it. But as soon as West Ham got themselves back in the game, all it took was for Newcastle United to switch instantly, and the gaps were there. It was wide open because they'd been playing 45 minutes or so, 50 minutes at that point with 10 men, and the gaps were there again. And Newcastle United could have scored. Almiron had one off the... not Almiron. Jacob Murphy had one off the line. They created other chances. It could have been... Newcastle could have scored many goals that day, and there's not many days this season we've been able to say that Newcastle United were like that, ramping in front of goal. Look, I'm happy. I don't really care how Newcastle United get these results between now and the end of the season. And I would suspect they probably only need one more. You wouldn't want to leave it to the last day, let's be honest about it. But I don't see why there's any reason why Newcastle can't get something at home against Arsenal, even if that's a point, be enough to keep them ticking over. Liverpool hardly pulled up any trees against Leeds the other night. You know what I mean? So there's no reason why. Look, it's normally a write-off. I get that. But let's just go and have a go. You know what I mean? Let's go and keep it tight for a bit and then have a go.
It's weird, isn't it? A bit of confidence. Nothing frightens you now. I mean, you're right. Liverpool's not the Liverpool who were, beating everybody out of sight last season. They're in a currently a bad spell of form. Go and park the bus there and try and catch them on the counter. You never know. There's been some queer results at Anfield in the last 2 months, and Arsenal looked awful. And they're coming to St James's Park, and I genuinely can see Newcastle getting something out of that. But that's what happens. You're building on a set of results, and suddenly the confidence is back.
Yeah, well, I think the way I look at it is, I think as long as they get something in the Arsenal game, that'll keep them ticking over, and I think they'll beat Sheffield United on the penultimate game of the season. So I think Newcastle United will be going to Fulham, and it'll not even be a contest. I still struggle to see where Fulham are going to get enough points. West Brom, you would hope that Thursday, I think it's Thursday night they play Leicester. I think that you'd have to think that might be the final nail in their coffin. If they get beaten that game, they're almost going to have to win every single game between now and the end of the season to stay in the division. Fulham are kind of looking like that at the moment. They're probably going to have to at least win another three games to be in the mix. So you're probably saying they're going to have to win 4. It's a tough ask when you've won 5 games all season to then go and win 5 in your final handful of games. It just doesn't happen, Stephen. And I think yes, there are going to be worries. There will be twists. People will pick up. There will be the odd daft result because a lot of teams haven't got a lot to play for, and people with something to play for are always going to give that little bit 10% extra. So you will get the odd result. But I see Fulham are going to Chelsea this week. That's a massive game. I don't see them getting anything from that game. And if those 2 results go that way, Leicester beat West Brom and Chelsea then beat Fulham, I think probably all the teams whose head are above water at the moment can probably think themselves pretty safe.
Yeah, I would agree, mate. I would agree. Malky Taylor, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. He says, evening, Stephen Liam. Can I ask you to give an opinion on if the Big Six do sign up to the ESL, what do you think the EPL will do? I.e., no relegation, promotion for 6 top teams from Championship? Thoughts?
Interesting, Malcolm. I mean, again, we're in the realm of hypotheticals. I just don't believe the Premier League want to lose their 6. So I think it would have to come to an absolute desperation moment for them to allow them to leave or to throw them out. I just don't think we'll get to that point. Look, I could be wrong. Again, we're living in a world of hypotheticals. I don't know what the answers are. There's 2 real camps here. There's your English football, European football, UEFA camp, and then there's the clubs, and they're so entrenched in a separate ends. I don't see the little stepping stones between. I don't see where the compromises come, because I look at the Champions League model that has just been passed on Monday, and to me, that is largely the compromises that the big clubs wanted. It allows them more money. It allows them more chance of qualifying. It allows them more games. I just don't get where the coefficient thing, I don't get where the stepping stones are, the further compromises that can be made to rein these back in. I hope it happens. I don't want to see any league crumbled up and bits taken off, etc. I don't want to see that happen. But let's go back to your hypothetical question. Yeah, I think you're probably going to talk about something like you may say minimize. It may be a slightly smaller division. But it might be, I think they'll probably trim the division slightly and maybe bring another couple of clubs up. That's the way I would see it happening. But again, it's all guesswork because we've got no idea what the hell the next day is going to bring, never mind 2 weeks' time and 6 months' time.
I haven't regarded anything, to be honest. Charles Toon, he says, will the PIF look at Inter as Newcastle wouldn't be appealing financially because of the Super League? I touched on that one because ultimately the Inter Milan story raised its ugly head again this weekend. Daily Mirror, I think it was, that came out with that headline. It's just regurgitated crap for me.
It was rubbish. It was absolute rubbish. I sent that to you, didn't I, Stephen, a few days the weekend. I just thought, I give up. I think at the top of the email I said I give up. And I do give up. That's my industry, and there's people regurgitating tripe like that. Absolute rubbish. The headline was something like, Amanda Staveley wants to buy Inter Milan. Amanda Staveley wants to buy Inter Milan? Where on earth are you getting that from? You're jumbling up stories, mate. Get another job.
Yeah, absolute garbage. And, just so disappointing to see journalism, resorting to that kind of clickbait. Absolutely, boils my urine. David Tompkins says, report on Sky Sports News earlier that Boris Johnson could push for 51% of clubs should be fan owned if this isn't sorted out. What are your thoughts? I mean, this fan owned stuff, again, it comes back to, what the trust are trying to do with the pledge and, talking about that on a regular basis on these shows over the last few weeks. I mean, it's pie in the sky for any club, I think, at this moment in time to have that kind of percentage where fans come in and run it. I just don't understand. It would change, the talk about the top six leaving, that would just change the entire face of football as we know it, wouldn't it? I'm not even sure if it would be a good thing or not. I mean, I don't know. What's your view on it?
I think 51% is a mental percentage for any kind of business, to be honest. But what I would say is that I think there could be a place for some kind of fan representation, not a fan veto, but something. I do believe that there might well be an independent arbiter in some ways that will sort things out for clubs. We'll be able to veto things from a higher level if things are going to be taken that are to the detriment of English football, as is this case. But it would have to be a complex, limited way of decision making because ultimately people buy football clubs because they want to run football clubs. Ultimately, what we do know, and we've known for a long, long time, is the owners and directors test is not fit for purpose. They suddenly decided to think that they were going to strengthen it up with Newcastle United, but it was just to suit their argument effectively. I don't think there are many owners looking at what we've seen in the Premier League. A good percentage of Premier League owners are not fit for purpose as well because they've accepted this. They've accepted taking away, in some cases, 130, 140 years of history, just throwing it away for the sake of a few extra billions. I tell you what, it sounds stupid, but James Corden, did anybody see that video of James Corden? It was really good. And one thing he said they're throwing away 140 years of some institutions that matter so much to communities in England. I think he was trying to get that across to the American audience that we're not just talking about, and this is something that isn't even always the case in Europe. We're talking about football clubs, and we're not talking about the 20 or the 92. Talking about like 150, 200 football clubs who are genuine institutions in towns, villages, everywhere. English football is massive in depth. I don't think he was quite getting that across. But he said it was him trading that in, that history, that heritage, for the sake of a billionaire wanting a bigger boat or another boat. And that's effectively what it is. These fat cats just want to get a little bit more rich. And it's pathetic, man. How much money do you need? How much money do you need to throw away everything? But it's an absolute lack of care. I want to say lack of understanding, but I think they understand what they're doing. I think that would be making excuses for these people. It, essentially, to me, is a lack of care. They don't care at all about us, about you, Steve, about me, about anybody in this. They don't care. We're the legacy crap. That's what we are. We're the ones who whinge with flags. We're the ones who Manchester United fans, they're the ones who buy a heritage scarf, you know what I mean? Like a green and yellow, they'll buy a scarf and they'll shout at the Glazers. They don't want that rubbish. They want some bloke sitting halfway across the world who just pays his money and he'll come in as a tourist. He'll fly in and he'll spend 600 quid at the ground because he only comes once every so often. That's their ideal fan, somebody who's at arm's length and they can control from a distance. They don't want nutters turning up, shouting and bawling at the steps of the stadium. Wear old hat. That's what people who are from the areas are told hat. But that's English football. That is the identity of English football. That is the accountability that's there. These people don't want any accountability. They don't want anything like that because you can see it. They're a bunch of cowards, absolute cowards. Fancy throwing Thomas Tuchel and Jurgen Klopp to the Wolves. Fancy doing that. Your manager, the bloke who you've bought to keep your investment going. Fancy chucking Tuchel. I think he got criticised because he didn't stand up. Fair enough, he didn't. But he was the first to go up. And it's hard. I don't blame him for sort of saying, look, this is bloody hard, this, sticking up for the indefensible. But then the employers, you know what I mean? And it was an embarrassing thing. What they should have done was they should have put themselves in front of the cameras, put themselves in front of done a video, seen some words. We've seen nothing apart from 3 pathetic paragraphs, one of which was from one of the Glazers that came through at 11:30 or whatever it was on Sunday night. It raises questions. It raises questions about the legitimacy of the whole thing. That's one concern that I would have, is that when you look at it, surely if you really, really, really wanted this to be a success and you were determined to sell it, which you can tell by the little bits leaking out in the last sort of 6 or 7 hours that they say that they're sort of downplaying the little rumours about fallouts, about breaks, about Man City and Chelsea not wanting to be in there. You can tell they care a bit about that. So if you wanted to win a media battle and a media war, you've got to go on the offensive. They've done anything but just shut up shop. We're used to Mike Ashley, and unfortunately, a lot of other clubs have got that as well. We're not alone in having owners who will not stand up, will not be accountable for their actions. There needs to be more of that. I think there has to be some kind of accountability. And I think these are the type of things that will probably be looked at in this fan review. How long does a fan review take? I mean, ask Keith and he'll tell you the results of it already before it even comes out. But I mean, for me, I think action. I'm fed up with all this talking. Nip it in the bud now. Just go for them. Go for the jugular and nip it in the bud.
I think as well, I mean, great, great that Corden's done that. But I also feel when it's something as big as this, we end up attracting people who you wouldn't even think of as a football supporter, suddenly jumping on the bandwagon just to get a few likes and subscriptions and what have you. You know what I mean? I've never ever would have had James Corden down as a football fan. Maybe he is. It's something maybe I've missed. He's not a Newcastle fan, so maybe I haven't paid attention. But I just found it a bit strange. Great what he said, but I just found it a bit strange. And we end up with loads of people jumping in, and now, of course, it becomes a political football. I mean, we sat and watched Keir Starmer wax lyrical about this, that, and the other. Within that hour-long conversation that he had with the 204 of us who were on the conversation, he then mentions that, the MPs will all be going into a recess shortly. Well, great. We'll probably not get anything done. It'll go on hold. And, it's not for the want of coming out and speaking to people, which is great. Boris did the same, today with fans. But ultimately, will it lead to anything, And I think it's, in a nutshell, it's probably just to address the situation so that they're hoping that the powers that be crack them a better deal with the Champions League and stuff like that. That's what they're hoping for. But it's gone further than anybody would have ever expected. Geordie Dentist, good evening, mate. He says, Inter's owners are no longer looking to see because they have signed up to ESL. He says they are looking for partial investment, which is not what PIF want. Thanks for explaining that. Rachel Lilly, she says, good evening, lads. At the 6 back away from the ESL, the Premier League should ensure that they aren't given the power they have now. They're holding the Premier League to ransom. Lots of like-minded messages like that. Paul, he says, English football is about the fans. This is about subscriptions and worldwide fans. It's not about us. And Andy making a good point, which I've seen a lot of people making on social media as well, saying, would Ashley want Newcastle into this Super League? He screwed us time and time again. I would imagine if he was hanging around, he'd probably want to, but it's a hypothetical question, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt on this occasion. Lots of these questions coming in. Do we think the ESL threat can be resolved by the EPL, and at what cost to the other 14 teams? It's going to be down to ultimatums, isn't it, really, Liam? That's what it's going to be down to, and whether they, what they've planned, really. Yeah, I think so. It's a funny one. Like, it was a good point there made about the power, the power that will remain with those clubs. We can't see a dilution of the power. A lot of talk in the Project Big Picture was about that, about the 9 clubs, and about votes going through on 9 clubs, and we can see why they were offering that sort of character to your Southamptons and your Leicesters, etc. I can't remember who it was now, West Ham maybe, just to get them on board to then change the rules. We need to keep it a 2/3 majority. It has to remain in and around that 14 clubs, because it'd be a real shame. I was just going to say, I've just Googled it when I was talking, and he's a West Ham fan currently, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Well, I wouldn't have known that. I mean, I remember him doing the England programme with, and all that, and he seemed to get on well with the players, so he must have an interest. But yeah, there we go. Paul Gray, yeah, I read this story as well. He says, was just reading before that Bill Shankly's grandson has requested that he wants his statue taken down as he's disgusted by what Liverpool are doing. That says it all. Yeah, I read that I read that online in the Liverpool Echo. Fantastic gesture by him. Certainly telling you where we'll have. I did laugh at this, Liam. Wolves official Twitter account put themselves down as Premier League champions 2018, 2019 in the hope that previous records will be wiped if these teams get kicked out of the league. So yeah, I mean, nice to see somebody taking it, a little bit of humour injected anyway, shall we say?
Well, that'll be all right because it'll certainly drop our weight for a trophy, won't it? We just didn't know we won it at the time. There'll be a few. Yeah. There'll be a few on our way. But no, it's daft. It's a bit of daftness. It's a bit of fun. I seen Leeds had a bit of fun with it yesterday. A bit of a dig at like some Manchester United. They would have loved that at Leeds, etc. There's been other clubs having little digs here and there. But yeah, it's a serious point that it won't be expunged. None of that will happen. But moving forward, it's an incredible thought to think of an English landscape without institutions such as those.
Tom Lynch is saying six league titles for us. If that happened, very good there, that Tom. We can go out. 6. We'll have to go out all week. We'll have to have a rest on the Sunday. We'll be out on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we'll have a sleep on the Sunday.
So we'll have a League Cup as well. We'll have a few FA Cups. We'll have loads. Wipe them from the calendar. We'll
get a new trophy cabinet, Mike. You're going to need it. Tim Kearns, I did see this as well. I'm sure you will have done. Thoughts on Shelby's call with the supporters, where I think it was a guy called Dave asked why he was so lazy.
Well, I assume, I can only assume on this one because I don't know, but I would imagine that's something that Shelby himself would have actually asked to address. I don't think it was sprung on him. I think that would have been a little bit unfair from the interviewer, and I think he probably would have got a clip after it, I would imagine, saying something like that in an interview. But look, for him to think to address it, he must be seeing it. He must be seeing what people are saying, and he can't hide. He can't hide away. He is lazy. There's no doubt about it. He doesn't track. He doesn't run. He doesn't show for the ball as much as he should. He doesn't take control of games as much as he should. Just because he's got the armband on his shoulder doesn't make you a captain, and that's what he thinks he is at the minute. That's why I can't give Steve Bruce so much credit. In my eyes, you play Joe Willock, you drop Sean Longstaff into the position that Rafa Benitez was coaching him into, building into when he first came in the team, playing through the back as Longstaff as the deep pivot. There's no reason why Longstaff, it doesn't suit him down the ground, but he could drop in there and Shelby goes out the team. We don't need a John Joe Shelby. If you have a John Joe Shelby as your captain and your talisman in midfield, you'll fight relegation every single season from now until he retires. And that's the problem Newcastle have got. They've just tied him down to a big deal. It's mental, craziness.
Louise says, according to Dan Rowan from the BBC, Chelsea are preparing documentation to withdraw from the ESL. Let's hope that is true, and we can put an end to this absolute farce, which John Poole is also saying. Dan Rowan claiming that Chelsea are sorting legal documents to withdraw. It's crazy. And the sooner that everybody else follows suit, the better. It's been an absolute farce, and it's given everybody something to talk about. Richard Varsters is on, of course, tonight. He's been a regular on our channel over the last few days. Says, "Don't worry, lads. I'll give the sexy six the Richard Masters treatment. Stall, and stall till they lose interest, and it won't happen." Cheers, Richard. Just get our takeover sorted out, Bonnie lad, will you? Lots of comments coming in. Shelby is slower than me nana, says Keith Patterson. Thanks for that, Keith. You're always one with some great criticism. Brilliant, mate. And I know you were on that Keir Starmer call. Keith will be on the show once again on Friday. He's becoming quite quickly the fourth amigo. He's all booked in for Friday. We'll also have John Waff on from the Magpie Group. Looking forward to welcoming John back. We did a one-off interview with John last year, which went down very well. I think a lot of people were interested in the history. John's going to be back on talking about what's going on with the takeover. He'll be giving his view on lots of things Newcastle United, I'm sure. Looking forward to having John on as well. So he'll be our special guest on Friday night. Sutty is asking, do you think Rafa might be tempted to manage in the ESL? It would be a shame because I would love him back at the Toon. I still think he's hanging fire, waiting to come back and restart the project.
It's all set to do it. So as soon as anything, if Newcastle United get that green light that they're really hoping for, it's all set. Like Rafael comes straight back in. His coaching team's already there. He knows it. He knows the club. We're talking about it a lot on here. He's already got his we think he's already got his director of football. We think he's got a load of other things already set up, ready to walk through the door. I don't think he'll wait forever. I always go back to that as a caveat. I don't think Rafa will wait forever. He's not the type of person who can't work. He comes across it, and he is a family man, etc. But I think he's a type who gets frustrated by just watching football on the TV. He's somebody that wants to be getting involved, getting his hands dirty, and making a big impact on teams, tactics, games, and top competitions. He does want to be involved in top competitions, and I think he wanted that for Newcastle United. He wanted the project. Fingers crossed everything goes the way everyone hopes it does, because I'm almost certain if that happens, we'll see Rafa Benitez managing Newcastle United again.
Yep, thanks, Andy. Looking like John Joe's older brother. I suppose it's a step up from being called Voldemort. But interesting comparisons. Anyone with a bald head is obviously somebody who looks like me. I think we've established that. And the comparisons between me and Keith as the Mitchell brothers will be flying in, I'm sure, on Friday. David says Nick DeMarco could find himself fighting the EPL on behalf of Newcastle, then fighting for the EPL against the Super League. He said he couldn't comment on Twitter this afternoon. Yeah, I did see him mentioning that. But when you're good at what you do, you're going to be sought after, aren't you?
Yeah, it's very important that he doesn't comment on it as well in any way, prejudice and ideas, views, etc. No, he can't. He obviously, there's very obvious reasons why he can't. I think DeMarco will not be short of work, especially if he manages to pull this one off with Newcastle United in the arbitration.
This is the thing we've got to deal with on this show, on this chat. Mark Byers, with Keith Patterson becoming a regular on Friday, you need to rename the show from Three Amigos to something else. How about Mitch and Steve Hasty shaving their heads and it could be renamed the Foreskins? If I had a video which could put tumbleweed across, I would do it. Thanks for that very adult suggestion, Mark. Marky Taylor says, one thing's for sure, this action by the Six will bring about a massive change because of their actions, and it will be interesting to see how, if it fails, how those clubs are viewed from now on. Well, yeah, I think you're right. It's very much like the big reveal at the end of Scooby-Doo, isn't it? We've known for the last 12 months that the big six are villains, and ultimately they've revealed the mask at the end, and now we know they are. Everybody can see it, and I just think it's going to make our arbitration case so much easier.
I wish that could have been said today. There was the platform there from a Newcastle United representative, somebody just to say, look, we told you they were, doing what they were doing, etc. The Newcastle United takeover. Nobody believed it. Nobody really believed it. And all of a sudden, now the masks, like you say, Scooby-Doo thing, the masks are revealed, and everyone can see exactly what was going on, exactly why they were pushing for Project Big Picture and the changes to the voting systems in the Premier League. Is it corruption, or is it just an absolute desire and want for control? It's hard to know, but I know there's a lot more at play than football, and that's why everybody's seen through it now that this can't be allowed to go on. Football may changes to the governance of English football have a direct impact on the Newcastle United takeover. I don't know, potentially. Obviously, things are all as they are. You can't change the rules halfway through. So I think the arbitration will decide on the rules that were there when this went through. But could it have a problem further down the line in the way things are done and the money that comes in and how decisions are taken? I don't know. Again, we're in the world of hypothetical.
Life Goal says Bruce could become the club gardener if Rafa came in, both employed in specialist fields. Very good. Richard Varstes is back. He says, I'll be on the Friday show in a couple of weeks when my hair's falling out with the stress.
I'm imagining going back to that Steve Bruce one. I can see Steve Bruce with his little hoe or something like that when he's sort of raking away at the grass at the side going, oh, the mighty Rafa. I'm not having any Steve Bruce criticism. The only person who can criticise Steve Bruce on this show at the minute is Stu, because he's criticised Steve Bruce for 12 months, saying Bruce out. Everybody else, we've got to be kind to Steve Bruce because he's got other points to stay up. Thank you, Doug. He says, good analogy with Scooby. I've got to say a huge thank you for saving my blushes to George Hayes, who has won the T-shirt by bidding
£100.
Oh, wow. Brilliant.
£100 going to the food bank for the Steve Wraith is God t-shirt. I'm glad we're not doing any more of them. Thank you very much to Q-Tech, of course, for coming up with that superb idea. It was all to do with the cult, of course. You can still buy your cult t-shirts. I think they're coming in this week. But yeah, it was all to do with the cult t-shirt. That's why he did it. But £100, George Hayes, I'll be in touch via Twitter. Put you in touch with Steve Hasty and you can sort that out. And fair play to him. He said if anyone had bid higher, then he would have gone up to 150. So, but it's £100 to the food bank, George. Thank you very much for your massive support on that. Yeah, lots of people agreeing with us. 5 minutes to go, mate. Let's start looking at Liverpool. Obviously, too early for team news. I presume St. Maximin's going to be all right. He had a little bit of a swollen ankle, didn't he? He was getting kicked from pillar to post, as he often does by West Ham, but still managed to do the business at the weekend. But yeah, I would presume we're more or less at full strength, though, with the exception of those who are out for the rest of the season, Lascelles and Shaw, etc.
I would look at Alan St. Maximin and you just got to look at the comments of Steve Bruce after the game, and what he talked about was he said he took the knock after 10 minutes. I think he was actually probably referring to that one on the touchline where it looked a bit innocuous. There was a bit of a challenge went in from the fullback and he did a bit of a roll and then was a bit limpy after. I think it was probably that challenge. The fact that bloke then played from the 55, 60 minutes on top of that shows you that it's probably one he can get through with. I think he'll probably be fine. I'm no medical expert, but I think he'll probably be fine for the weekend. The big question is Callum Wilson, isn't it? Do you bring Callum Wilson in? It's hard to say, isn't it? It is a difficult one to say. Do you throw him in? How long do you wait? And I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Steve Bruce will do. I think he might. You think he might be tempted another week under his belt to put Callum Wilson back in the side, but we'll have to see. Because I mean, there's been some decent performances. Joe Linton was pretty good again. He had that one poor game. Probably you would say out of 4 out of the last 5. Well, maybe 3 out of the last 5 games. He's probably been one of the better players in the team. So he isn't looking like a player who should be dropped. But it depends on Alan St. Maximin. But I think he could be tempted this weekend to bring Callum Wilson in, because ultimately, if a player is now fit, what are you saving him for? He could be the catalyst to just make sure everybody can put their feet up come Saturday night if Newcastle United go and get a result at Liverpool.
Yeah. Any prediction from you?
Look, I'm probably... My predictions haven't been bad recently, but I'm probably still going to go with something like, I would say, a 2-1 defeat. I still think Liverpool will probably have too much for Newcastle United, even though they've been poor recently, or not as good as they had been, like you said, last season. But I would still imagine that Liverpool will probably beat Newcastle United on Saturday. Yeah,
it seems as if Chelsea are pulling out of the ESL. It's gained momentum that it's all over the place now. So that's great news. And, hopefully Man City will follow next. And then, this will be something that will be next week's newspaper wrappers. Paul Oxley keeps asking the question to you. I'm sure he keeps tormenting you on Twitter as well about it. But are we safe, Liam?
Oh, he does, yeah. Paul keeps coming every time and saying, are we safe? Are we safe? I would have argued a couple of weeks ago 35 gets you safe, and I'm probably still thinking that I think something like 3 out of the 4 out of the last 5 seasons at 35 points has been enough to keep every single team in the division. I think 35 will be enough this time. But I wouldn't like to sit here and not get another point from the rest of the season. I would like to see at least get another point against Arsenal, and I think that'll probably be almost there. Beat Sheffield United, go to 39 points, and then it'll be fun and games at Fulham on the last day. That's the way I'm probably seeing how the season plays out. I imagine we'll get beat off Liverpool, definitely get beat off Man City, and I would imagine probably Leicester's probably a really difficult game to win. I know they've got the cup final, but they're also fighting it out in a canny battle up the top there for the top 4, if it ever matters. But yeah, so I think for me, I see Newcastle United probably between now and the end of the season picking up another minimum of 5 points.
Yeah. We'll be discussing that, I'm sure, over the course of the week with the rest of our guests on the other shows. But I think most people feel as if we are safe. The other big news, of course, that broke in the last 48 hours was Jose Mourinho getting the chop from Chelsea. Not a great surprise, I've got to be honest. I think after he threw his players under the bus, more or less, with his comments a couple of weeks ago, I was just thinking it was a case of when, not if, and it's proved to be the case.
Yeah, and I've always stood by this. I've said it for about 10 years. Asking me mates if you know any of them. I've always said exactly the same thing, that Jose Mourinho will end up in Newcastle United one day, and I've still got this weird feeling that I don't think it'll be soon. I don't think it'll be next. I don't whatever, but I do think Jose Mourinho will be Newcastle United manager one day, and I still believe he's a manager who will win things for the rest of his career. Yes, he may not be as inspiring as certain young coaches, as his day might be slightly gone, but I still think he's a manager. He's a serial winner, and I think he'll pop up somewhere and surprise a few people, because he always gets written off, but he always comes back, and he'll win a trophy or two or do well. I think there's life in the old dog yet.
Yeah, I mean, would you see him at Newcastle? Lots of people asking the question. I mean, he often talks about his love for Sir Bobby, etc. And whenever he's come up here, I mean, we know he hasn't got a particularly good track record as a visiting manager. Of course, he beat his hoodoo last season, but yeah, he often has a glimpse around the stadium. You can tell that it's one of those places he always wonders whether it's somewhere where he's going to get dragged to.
Yeah, no, I've said it all along for about 10 years now. I'm certain that one day he'll end up in Newcastle United, because I think there's somebody in the comments there saying it's that Sir Bobby Robson there. It is that the Sir Bobby Robson soul. He feels it. He visits the statue every time he comes back to the stadium. It is something that he feels, and I do one day think that he will rock up in Newcastle United. If the takeover goes through, I'm absolutely certain that Rafa Benitez will be the man that turns up in Newcastle United. But that doesn't mean it'll work. That doesn't mean it'll go on forever. And I still think, like I say, I think Jose's still got a canny few jobs left in him yet.
Is he the same Mourinho? I mean, little Musgrave's making the point here that I'd love the Mourinho of 10 to 15 years ago, but definitely not now. He's a toxic manager with none of the positive qualities he used to possess. I think I made the point on Ladies' Night last night that, it's since that incident on the touchline with I can never remember, was it a female physio or a female doctor? And it was embarrassing, you know what I mean? And she ended up leaving the club, and then she went to a disciplinary,
Yes.
took him to a tribunal or whatever it was. Something happened with him and her, and it just left a sour taste in the mouth. And I felt then that the media turned against him. I don't think he's ever really recovered from that,
No, he hasn't. But I think managerially, correct me if I'm wrong, he did go to Manchester United and win trophies as well after that.
He did,
even though it wasn't the Manchester United way. But I think, look, he's a man who divides opinion, and I don't believe he is that. We're talking 10, 15 years. You have to go back even further. We're talking about, is he the Jose Mourinho of 20 years ago who swept in from Porto to Chelsea? And no, he isn't, because he brought with him a certain style, a different way of management that was alien to English football. The training ground stuff, you just have to read John Terry, Frank Lampard, etc.'s comments about what he was like walking around that training ground. They'd not seen training drills and the organisation and the minute detail planning. They'd not seen anything like that in English football. Everybody does that now. So that was his point of difference 20 years ago. Everybody does what he did then and brought to the game. So yes, I do believe that he isn't quite the same. But I think it's in there. I think it's the heart, and I think if he comes back, if he comes to Newcastle United, I think he'll come here and win something. I really do. God, people think I'm a right dreamer going on like this, aren't they? Like,
it's just nice. It's nice to have a bit of positivity, mate. We'll leave the last question to Tom. He's been with us on this journey for the last 12 months, following us on the show. Good evening to you, Tom. Hope you're well, mate. He says, Rafa or Jose?
Rafa. I would take Rafa probably. It's a really tough question because there's not a lot of love lost between those two managers. They really don't like each other. And I think Rafa particularly doesn't like Jose Mourinho, although he'd never come out and say that directly, I don't think. But there's no love lost between them. But I would probably go Rafa. And the reason why Rafa would shade it for me is because he'd already built the foundations at the club. He could walk in here and he would just already be back at home, and he would shape the club in his own image, from training facilities to infrastructure to youth and training regimes, etc. Ways of playing from the youth system all the way up to the first team. It's one of the biggest disappointments about the Rafa thing is that we never got to see those real shoots that he put in that first season. and then a little bit beyond until it really died, probably halfway through that second season, when he realised himself he was never, ever going to be able to fulfil the ambition that he'd come into the football club with because of Mike Ashley tying both hands behind his back. But yeah, for me, that's the big disappointment, that we never got to see Rafa's vision come to fruition, and I would like to see him finish the job he started.
I'll have a pint of whatever Andy's drinking. Like, weird how Liam looks like Rafa and you look like John Joe. I'm not seeing the Rafa resemblance, like the haircut and all that, but you're definitely not a Rafa. But he does finish off with saying, great show though, guys, which of course is reiterated by a lot of people. Let's just give a plug to where people can find your work, Liam.
Yeah, so everybody just have a look down here. That's where you'll find us on Twitter, at Liam J Kennedy 23. If you like what I do on here, just come and give us a follow. I work for a newspaper called the Shields Gazette. We do our own podcast, we do our own paper, do web content, etc. And we work on a subscription system, so you don't get everything for free these days with journalism. It's only going that way. And if you like what I do, you'll probably like a lot of stuff that I write as well. So just go and check it out. And if you can, then dive in and give a subscription, another subscription to the Gazette.
Yeah, fantastic. Do that, please, folks. And well done to Chelsea fans. Looks like their fantastic protest tonight certainly paid off. We want our cold nights back in Stoke was one of the banners. Fantastic. I think we can all share memories of nights like that. But yeah, well done. Looks like Chelsea have been the first one to crumble. And yeah, please get yourself over to follow Liam on Twitter as well, at Liam J Kennedy 23. Liam, that hour passes very quickly. I've got to jump onto a Zoom call now. I am back tomorrow night again, as I've already mentioned, with the Retro Show. But Liam, I will see you next Tuesday. Have a good week, mate. Take care.
Cheers.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back.